Good morning, everyone. Time being 9:02. My name is Myrna Molina, and I'll be calling today's Judicial and Public Safety Committee meeting to order Thursday, December 16th. Good morning. First item on our agenda is roll call.
Davis. Brown.
Brown here.
Gums. Leonard.
Leonard here.
Sanchez.
Sanchez here.
Shepro. Irog. Molina.
Molina present. Okay, we are going to request to defer our minutes from last month to next month. So we'll move on to our next item on our agenda, which is our public comment. And I believe we have one person signed up to speak. Mr. Bertha?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is David Bertha, but county board members know me as King David from the south side of Chicago. This committee must have mistaken my appearance last month as a public service announcement. It was not. I expect this committee to act. Sheriff Ron Hain has failed to respond to my complaints. Is it intentional discrimination or a complete breakdown of the entire system? This committee has an obligation to discuss the sheriff's process for reviewing complaints as an agenda item at its next meeting. Ron Hain's black asphalt policing tactics have inflicted severe harm on communities of color. Ron is the guy in the Desert Snow videos claiming that pretrial asset seizures are a tax-liberating gold mine. He believes in policing for profit. He said it himself. So I don't believe the social justice warrior persona that he has recently adopted. The county board authorized payment to James Mesa because Ron unlawfully prolonged a traffic stop in order to allow his friend, Sergeant Scott Flowers, to seize his assets and conduct an illegal strip search. Ron practiced what he preached. I filed sheriff's complaint number 92 because deputies unlawfully seized my assets. I filed complaint number 93 because Sheriff Ron Hain's friend videotaped themselves strip searching me. What if it happened to your wife, mother, or daughter? Imagine for a moment, the deputies videotaped themselves strip searching a white woman. This community would be outraged. I'm sure someone would organize a candlelight vigil, right? There was a candlelight vigil for a dog, right? Justice for Ludwig, right? Ron Hain and Jamie Mosser even held a press conference to explain the decision not to prosecute anyone for the death of a dog, right? I don't need a press conference. Jamie Mosser can explain her refusal to prosecute anyone for obstruction of justice right here, right now. Ron can explain his failure to respond to my complaints today too, or he can say what he really wants to say. Black lives really don't matter. The life of a dog is valued more than my life. Ron wants to seize my people's assets before trial. He enjoys his work as an overseer of a plantation. Oops, I meant the sheriff in charge of a jail. He wants to count on my people's votes in November. I will introduce myself to community activists in Elgin and Aurora to prevent that from happening. I will visit every Black church. I will be at every campaign event. The only way for Ron to be reelected sheriff is over my dead body. Allahu Akbar.
Okay, our monthly financial reports are on file. Next item on our agenda is the Merit Commission.
Good morning, Pete Bergert from the Merit Commission. Quick recap, we had our test for corrections this past Tuesday, the 14th. We had 21 applicants finally, which is still low. 19 took the test, 14 passed. We'll have interviews tonight and tomorrow. The sheriff should have his eligibility list by Monday or Tuesday. And one of the good things that Sheriff Hain and other sheriffs have always, were always concerned about was the lack of minorities on the list. And we're quite happy this time we had about 25% of our list is minorities and about 20% female, which is higher than any other test since I've been on the commission for 5 years. We're also the list for lieutenants in corrections has already been exhausted. We just tested a couple months ago. There are only 2 people on the list. They've both been promoted. So we'll be testing for lieutenants again in April. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for our Merit Commission? Okay, thank you for your work. Okay, next item on our agenda is KingCom. Good morning, Ms. Guthrie.
Good morning. Oops. Our monthly reports are on file. I just want to highlight, obviously, last night was a busy night in public safety due to the weather conditions. Our midnight shift, just doing some quick calculations, it looks like overnight they saw the same activity level as you would on a day shift or an afternoon shift. So it was definitely a busy time for them. In terms of new projects that we are looking to do in 22, we have been working on next generation 911 for the past couple years. And we are in a great position. If we have to do any upgrades to our equipment, those upgrades should be minor and we can explore different grant funding, which I'm in the process of doing right now. But also the state has visited a couple times. AT&T has come out to make sure that we have the circuits installed. So when the state is ready to go live with the next generation 911, then we are also ready. And we are in the same emergency systems telephone board with Tricom Central Dispatch. And so both centers have made sure as each other's backups that we're in a great position and ready to go live. And from my understanding, only 12% to 15% of the 911 centers in the state of Illinois have had the circuit installed. So I'm pleased we're in a good position going into 22. And that's all I have this morning.
Okay, great, thank you. And then we also have a resolution. I'll go ahead and introduce it and then ask for a motion. This resolution is ratifying the county board's authorization of wage increase for fiscal year 2022 for department heads under the jurisdiction of the Judicial and Public Safety Committee. May I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve?
Leonard, so moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Motion made by Mr. Leonard, second by Mr. Sanchez. Any comments or questions regarding this resolution? Okay, so yes, this basically just provides the same wage increase that was appropriated to our county employees for our directors. Okay, no comments or questions. If I can have roll call, please.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Gums. Not here. Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Shepro, Davis, Molina.
Molina, yes. Okay, this item passes and it'll move on to our Finance Committee later on this month. Okay, next item on our agenda is our Sheriff and Adult Corrections. Sheriff Hain, good morning.
Morning, everybody. As my holiday gift to you, I'm not going to give you a PowerPoint today. So just a quick verbal report. So for the better part of this year, we've been part of a jail collaborative that features our recovery pod that we talk a lot about that's resulted in the 89% decrease in overdose deaths in the community and reduced our recidivism from right around 49% to 18% over the last 3 years. And now we're coaching 7 other jails in Illinois on essentially what we do for our men in recovery pod. We're working on a grant fund to create a women's recovery pod in our jail where all the other 7 counties will be sending their small female population to Kane County Jail, where we'll host them along with our small female population in our vacant cell block. So this is just a really exciting out of the box opportunity for us to do something good for the women demographic that doesn't quite get the same care just because of the disparity in population population. We're still working on our leasing space for the treatment center. The conversations are continuing with a couple of different treatment centers in the country on taking us up on leasing the space. So that's still rolling forward. I'll keep you apprised as soon as we have a final bid in. A quick report on jail population. Remember, 3 years ago, our average population was about 550 folks in our jail. We have 372 in custody now. That's an astounding figure to me, with 65 on electronic monitoring. Knowing all of that, the reduction in jail population and our average of 65 to 70 per month on electronic monitoring, this year we estimated we saved the county about $2.4 million through electronic monitoring and the reduction in jail population. Last year, we were about 1.6 million in savings. So it just goes to show that the collaboration we have in this justice system is going a long way, especially when you look at recidivism rates and crime numbers. We do have a new chef program in the jail. The reason why I want you to put that on your radar, this program is taught by a gentleman who was recently released on the state's attorney in my reentry program, Porfirio. And he is a master chef. He's coming back in the facility and teaching other men how to cook. And we're going to be in about a month and a half doing a VIP dinner for everybody in this room and all the other county board members. So you'll be getting an invite for that. And again, based on the collaboration that we always see in this group, I want to thank the chief judge, the state's attorney, the circuit clerk, and the public defender's office for an emergency bond call that we pulled together in about 15 minutes yesterday for a unique circumstance out of Batavia. It's amazing when I can make a phone call and, everybody just jumps together and makes it happen. So big thank you for that. And we can move on to my resolutions.
Okay, great. Do you want to go ahead and introduce the first resolution?
So this is receiving grant funds for our Office of Emergency Management. It's their annual grant.
Oh, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve?
Sanchez moves. Brown seconds.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Sanchez and second by Mr. Brown. Any comments or questions regarding this resolution? Okay, may I please have roll call?
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Gums, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Shepro, Davis, Molina.
Molina, yes.
Passes.
Okay, this passes and we'll move on to our Finance and Budget Committee meeting later on this month. And Sheriff, there's a second resolution you can go ahead and introduce.
This is our annual purchase of 13 vehicles for our patrol fleet. I should say 12 vehicles for our patrol fleet and one corrections van. And also it includes a budget adjustment to roll over some of those funds from FY21 to FY22. I do want to say this is budgeted, and our staff constantly comments and notes how supportive this county board has been over the last 3 years to really get us in a position and keep us in a position of safety for not only our public, but for our deputies themselves. So thank you on behalf of the Sheriff's Office.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve?
Leonard, so moves. Brown seconds.
Mr. Leonard moves and Mr. Brown seconds. Okay, any further questions or comments regarding this resolution? Okay, I'll go ahead and ask for a roll.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Gums, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Shepro, Davis, Molina.
Molina, yes, and this also passes on to our Finance Committee later on this month. Okay, thank you, Sheriff Hayne. Any comments or questions for our sheriff? All right, keep up the good work. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Okay, next item on our agenda is our State's Attorney.
Thank you. Good morning,
Morning,
everyone.
Ms. Mosser.
As my Christmas gift to you, I have a much better PowerPoint presentation than I've ever done. And part of that is in thanks to Sheriff Hayne. As you know, we've been collaborating on a lot of projects, and one of those is that Sheriff Hayne has loaned to me until we can make it permanent, the services of his Justice CFO, essentially Terry Hunt. And we have been utilizing his services so that he can help with what we've been doing at the State's Attorney's Office. To that end, then, I'm very excited to say that as of January 3rd, the State's Attorney's Office will hire a Justice Grants Manager who is going to not only monitor our grants, but be able to look for and apply for grants for the judicial system. And it's the purpose is what we really want for all of us to be able to look at that, because within the judicial system, there's a lot of overlap in what we may want to do, what the public defender's office may want to do, and the sheriff. And but for his cooperation in allowing us to work with Mr. Hunt, we would never have been able to have this within our budget. So a big thank you to him. And as you can already see from the beginning of my PowerPoint, it's much more professional than I've ever done. So with that funness.
Transitions.
So this is a summary of our financial state as of October 31st. So our financials are on file. The reason why we did it from October 31st is because this latter portion, not everything has posted in the accounts payable. We haven't received all of the grants. So we just wanted to give you the most accurate detail of what we're doing. If we were to do this as of the end of November, it would change once everything came in. So this is overall our budget. So you'll see that our revenues were still a little bit under, but we're still projected at this point 93% at the end of October. So we're really hoping that obviously we're going to exceed that once everything comes in, and our expenses are significantly under. We do believe that overall, in terms of our budget for the first year, we are going to, or for the first year as me as state's attorney, we are expected to come in under budget for our expenses. We have 14 different funds that we utilize outside of the general fund. We have a lot of special funds. Within that, we take money from grants, fees, charged for services, fines imposed, and reimbursements. And you're going to see throughout all of this that our expenses are categorized into personnel, contractual, commodities, and capital. Just going into our general fund overall, you'll see in our general fund, our revenues are actually 109% over. And again, this is without the last portion of our budget occurring. And our expenses, again, are under at 79%. When you look at our external revenues, you'll see that there's grants, fees, fines, and reimbursements. The reimbursements is what the state pays for the salary for myself. But for the fees, we have been above what it is that we're collecting, and that's thanks a lot in partnership to the circuit clerk, who I think has done a great job in terms of making sure that the fees go exactly where they're supposed to go. Our general fund expenses, obviously personnel is the highest amount that we have. We have 166 employees at the state's attorney's office now, and you'll see that we are trending under for that. Both our contractual services and our commodities are trending under, but that again is because this year, while we have been increasing the level of trials that we've had since the pandemic hit, we're certainly nowhere near where we were before the pandemic. The civil division is a special revenue fund. That's something that comes out of tax. So as a result of that, they do not have revenue. Again, for expenses, we are trending under that. As this board knows, we have recently received the approval for another civil division attorney, which we are eternally grateful for, because we have so much work that they've already been expected to do. And on top of that, we've had the ARP money that we've had to work with, and trying to work within all of the committees, with all of the board members, and with all of the majority of issues that have been happening. But again, we're trending under at this point. For the civil division expenses, again, personnel being the highest one, the contractual services being more than the criminal division. And this is going to deal with the fact that we had redistricting and reapportionment, because that's part of what we contracted out, is to have the expertise of Phil Lutkehans to help us get to where we are in this level. Title IV is our child support. Child support comes in and helps people who are taking care of their children receive child support from the other parent. So again, for revenues, you'll see that there is money that comes in as a result of fees that occur, and then the expenses still trending lower in regards to everything for that. You'll see that our grants, because again, this is a grant that's given from the state to be able to pay our attorneys to do this. So this isn't at an expense to the county itself. It's just coming from the state, because we work with DHS to collect money. And we end up collecting millions of dollars to give to people for the support of their children. The expenses, again, mostly in personnel and some in contractual services. Most of that is because we need to serve the other parent. So we hire process servers and use our own process servers to try to get people to come into court. Our drug prosecution is a special revenue fund as well. Most of this money comes from grants and fines. In terms of revenues, again, regarding fines and grants that come in, you'll see that we are under what we're expected to do, but we do believe that we may reach that by the end of the year, and our expenses are trending under. Mostly, again, this is the difference between the grants and fines. So you'll see that we're still waiting to collect on some of the grants, and that's something that Mr. Hunt has been doing a great job in terms of following. With a new grants manager, we believe that we'll be even more on target when she starts. Our expenses, personnel, our contractual services, again, could be expert witnesses that are coming in, a lot of drug testing, and other things that are necessary to bring forth the criminal prosecution. We have a domestic violence fund, which is also a special fund. It is funded, it doesn't have a lot of services. We were able to get the transfer, our domestic violence division increased because last year we were able to ask for the budget amendment so we can bring in 2 new attorneys along with a victim advocate, which has helped immensely in terms of the increase in the domestic violence cases that we have. Again, we're under for the revenues, but we believe that this is something that we're going to be able to meet by the end of the year, and expenses are under as well. Personnel and contractual services. A lot of this deals with the fact that we have orders of protection as a part of our cases, and sometimes what we have to do is publish the orders of protection. We do a lot more outside service attempts on victims of domestic violence because these are witnesses or victims who tend to want to not be served. And again, that's because of the cycle of violence. And the best thing that we can do is try to be as diligent as possible in serving these individuals so that we can hopefully get the abuser to take accountability and most importantly, get counseling so that we can stop the cycle of violence. Our Child Advocacy Center is also a special revenue fund. I have to say that our Child Advocacy Center probably has done more trials than any other division this year. And that is a testament to their hard work and to being able to get these very difficult cases in front of judges and juries. It's almost on a weekly basis that I hear that these 4 attorneys have at least 1 or 2 trials that are up and ready to go. For the revenues, again, these are fines and fees or grants that we get, and we're actually trending over what we were estimated to do, and yet our expenses still remain under. It's unfortunate that we have had the inability to hire a bilingual advocate. We have been posting everywhere we possibly can to try to get an advocate because we want to have somebody who is there and able to speak the language of some of our victims. So we are exploring different ways to do that, including trying to go to the schools to see if there's interest there. We've posted on all of the outside sources like Indeed and on the county, and we're working very hard to try to fill that position still. So again, you'll see that we have grants, we have fees, and we have reimbursements, and reimbursements usually is for counseling services that we provide. The child advocacy expenses, again, mostly for personnel. We are lower on the personnel, and that's mostly because we were unable to fill a couple outstanding positions. Our contractual services, we use a lot more with this division because again, it's bringing in outside counselors. Sometimes we have to bring in people who are doing the lie detector test. There's a whole variety of services that we use in these particular cases. Now we're going to put all of this together for our remaining other special revenue funds. You'll see that again, in this particular one, other special revenue funds were lower on our revenues. This is something that we actually expected was going to happen, but our expenses remain low as well. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for our state's attorney? Wonderful presentation.
I just want to note that the sheriff left and didn't see that brilliant presentation. So thank you.
We had some
Thank you.
security issues downstairs, so.
Okay, that's reasonable.
Okay, I don't hear any questions. Just thank you so much. And I mean, the way you explained it was on point. I understand. So if Sheriff wants to watch it, it'll be on YouTube. So you can watch it later on.
Thank you. Mr. Hunt spent an hour explaining it to me so that I could explain it to all of you.
All right, and then you have a resolution?
We actually withdrew the resolution. It's something that we are going to do at some point, but we were advised that it was better not at the beginning of the fiscal year, but later on in the year. So
Okay, great. Any other comments or questions for our state's attorney? Okay, we will move on to our public defender.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you. We are working on our year-end numbers so that we can do our year-end report. Overall, it looks like we are coming in higher than last year, a little bit less than 2019 though. So it does seem that there are still issues with people getting arrested because of COVID. As well, we have seen that we still have a little bit of lag in cases that we need to close based upon that were carried over from COVID. So we are diligently working on all of that. Overall, though, this past year, we have done 17 felony jury trials, 7 felony bench trials, 3 misdemeanor jury trials, and then countless other misdemeanor bench trials. Those are a little easier to do than the felony ones, so they do them pretty regularly. So overall, everyone is working very hard to try to get dispositions for our clients and finality for their cases, especially clients that had to wait in the jail during COVID, the whole time wait for their day in court. So we're working very hard on that, working hard on Judge Hull's list of cases 3 years or older. We've closed several of those in the last couple of weeks. So we are making progress. So, and our report is on file.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments for our public defender? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and we will move on to our judiciary and courts. Judge Hall?
Yeah, good morning. Just a couple things that I want to echo on as far as Rochelle and then the sheriff. But one, again, just to give you a little information about what Rochelle had said about the focus of the cases. We as I've told you, we took a list about a year ago, looked at all the people that had been in our jail for a year or longer awaiting trial, and decided that we wanted to focus on what could we do to try to get those cases to trial. Those are people that are in that have probable cause have been found, but that they are awaiting trial or disposition. We started with 107 of those. We're now down to 70. So we've made a substantial reduction in that. There's about 8 people who have been in custody 3 years or longer. And what we've done collectively is identified to try to remove any obstacles that would prevent those cases from going to trial. And if continuances do have to happen as a result of missing witnesses or whatnot, instead of continuing them out 4 or 5 months as before, we're prioritizing those and getting those cases heard within a month or a month and a half. So I'm very proud of that. And again, that goes to the cooperative efforts of all of us. But again, when you listen to the sheriff and you listen to Jamie and Rochelle talk about restorative justice and the importance of not incarcerating people longer than they need to be, we have this population that's there that we need to focus on so that we can get the cases resolved, either guilty or not guilty, but we need to move those forward, and we are. So I'm proud of that. The other thing that I just want to echo on, just to again explain a little bit more about what happened yesterday. We had a gentleman that was arrested in Batavia because of specific health needs. If that person was required to wait for bond call to the following day, it was going to be a hardship on not only that individual who was seriously ill that had been arrested, but also on Batavia Police Department and also on the sheriff's office because we have bond call each morning. So what the sheriff did was to reach out to everybody, the state's attorney, the PD, and myself to see if we could, instead of waiting till bond call the next day, which would be this morning, if we could figure out a way to do bond call yesterday. So within about 20 minutes, we were able to get Judge Clement, circuit clerk, Rochelle herself was the public defender, state's attorney to hold the bond hearing. And so again, it's the little details, but that doesn't happen without the cooperation of everybody. And as a result, the person who was arrested had a chance to have their bond call. We didn't have to go through that situation, and the judge was able to make a decision and move on. So it's that kind of stuff. Go ahead, Sheriff.
At 4:30 in the afternoon, when everybody's leaving and on their way home. So I
Yeah.
just want to point that out, how impressive that was. I just appreciate everybody.
Well, Mr. Kenyon and I joke a lot about just over the course of the history. A lot of times you hear, that the judges leave early and the parking lot is empty. And it's just something that's carried on for a long time. And I always laugh with him and talk about the fact that maybe that was in the old days, but it's not now. But this was a perfect example of, Everybody was there. We had people waiting. The clerk's office was there. Everybody was ready to go. And it's just little stuff like that that makes me proud to be the chief judge. We've got a lot of tough issues and you guys have a lot of tough issues, but that's fun when something like that happens. And so that was great. The only other thing that I would say is really I'm starting to focus on 2022 goals for the chief judge's office. And the biggest one is going to be preparation for the implementation of the Safety Act. We've talked to you about that. That's a year away and there's a lot of work that has to be done. We're going to do that work and we'll come back and keep you apprised as to what's going on. But there's going to be a lot of heavy lifting that we're going to have to do together and we're prepared to do that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but other than that, Merry Christmas and thanks for all the support throughout this calendar year.
Madam
Do you
Chair.
have any questions, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I, on behalf of the Batavia Police Department then, and then everybody involved in this incident yesterday, I want to thank you and everybody else that was involved in getting this taken care of. Sounds like it was a real need to take care of that. And then I do have another question regarding the amount of time that people are detained in the jail. When you say 3 years, the public might say, well, what is the county doing that is keeping these people in jail before they can get in front of a judge? I'm assuming that a lot of the reasons are not because we can't get to it. It's on the other side that is holding things up as well. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so appreciative of you asking the question and I could even defer to the state's attorney and the PD, but you know, what my obligation as the chief judge is to make sure that everybody is ready, willing, and able to go. And so when it relates to us answering to taxpayers, you know, we need to have the judges, the staff, and the ability to move forward. And we do, and we are. The delay that you see is as a result of witnesses being unavailable, things that are outside. So we do what we can control. And then there are things that are outside of control that delay that. But for one example, just to give you an idea, on a complicated murder case, and these cases that are 3 years or more are for the most part murders or predatory criminal sexual assaults, cases that carry penalties that could be 50, 60 years, and in some cases up to natural life. So we have to make sure that we get it right. But in the past, when those cases would get continued, because of the trial docket, a judge wouldn't be able to give that person or those parties a date for 4 or 5 months, just because there were other cases that were set. What we've tried to do is to say, you know what, we're not okay with the 4 to 5, 6 month continuance now because of the age of those cases. And we're bumping cases that are either out of custody or who have been in custody lesser amounts of time to really prioritize and focus on that. And Rochelle and Jamie, I mean, any other comments as far as to that delay, anything that I didn't add on to?
No, I would agree. I mean, to look at the list, these are the most serious cases in the county. I think COVID has played a little bit of a part in that too, of people waiting longer. So, you know, somebody who got to 3 years probably sat a year because of COVID. So that has been an issue, but definitely these are the most serious cases that take the most amount of work. You're talking about thousands of pages of discovery for both sides, the state's attorney and the defense, to have to go through and to prepare the case, prepare the witnesses, and to prepare the client as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
And the only other thing, I know you kind of hit on something that I could talk about this forever because I love it. But our goal is to be efficient and to be effective. And when we talk about the county's role in this, you know, one of the things that we need to get better at, and that with the cooperation of the office holders, we are getting better at, though, is the discovery process. You know, when we talk about those thousands of pages of police reports, what we need to do is get those from the police department into the hands of the defense attorney as quickly as possible. And if we don't do that, then we as a system are failing. I don't think we're doing what we should do. And one of the problems that we have is we have different computer systems. We've talked about this. Aurora uses a different system than the state's attorney. And so if we don't have it all together, getting those reports becomes complicated. And that's where my frustration as chief judge comes in. We have to remove those obstacles. We have an obligation to do whatever we can to try to reduce that amount of time. And I think when you look at some of these cases, it's a result of us not being able to do that as efficiently as we want. Now, we're all working together and we've identified that and we've made a great deal of progress. But when we talk about the county's role, and I know you and I have had conversations about it, That's where that technology is so important, because the faster we can get it from the police department into the hands of the state's attorney, who then in turn can get it turned around to the defense attorney, the faster we can get motions done, the faster that we, and so for me as the chief judge, I hate to hear, the case has been continued because another 3 months because we need to get discovery out. That's, and I'm not pointing a finger at anybody. They've done a fantastic job, but that's where when you analyze cases and you realize where the hangup is, a lot of times that's the hangup. And we want to try to alleviate that and then work as hard as we can to prioritize the in custody cases.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a comment on Chief Judge Hull's statement about the number of detainees that had been in over a year and reducing that from, I believe you said 107 to 70.
Right.
Which is a 35% decrease, which is wonderful, not only for the detainee, but for our system. And from a much less important, but still a considerable thought, the cost of reducing those detainees in the jail each and every day is substantial. And if you take a look at it, what we're looking at is about a $750,000 a year savings, which is substantial. I know that the judiciary and public service area have had many needs and they're in many ways overworked and need more help, but they also are showing that they're trying to reduce the cost to the county. And I think it's very important that everybody be made aware of that. So I thank each and every department in the judiciary for what they're doing.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Leonard.
And I would turn it over to Doug for a resolution.
Okay, Doug, go ahead with, you can introduce the resolution.
Thank you. Before you have a resolution approving for court-appointed counsel, this is our standard contracts that we have with not less than 4 attorneys. This is in our budget. The contracts run from January 1 to December 31 of each calendar year. And I would ask for your approval. Any questions? I'll take any questions that you have on this resolution.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve this resolution?
Sanchez moves.
Motion made by Mr. Sanchez and second by Mr. Leonard.
Leonard seconds, yes.
Okay, any comments or questions? Okay, may I please have roll call?
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Gums, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Shepro, Davis, Molina.
Molina, yes. Okay, motion passes on to our Finance and Budget Committee meeting later on this month. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our Court Services Administration.
Good morning, everyone. My name is LaTanya Hill. On behalf of Lisa Oss, I extend happy holidays and happy new year while she is taking a well-deserved vacation. This morning, we don't have much before you. Our JJC monthly report is on file. I do have a resolution unless anyone has any other questions.
Okay, no, go ahead with your resolution.
The resolution before you today is ultimately a notification for us to enter into contracts with substance abuse providers in the area. We requested a request for qualifications so that we can make referrals for those that are on caseload or pending court to have assessments done and assist also with some of those substance abuse services. This does not affect the general fund. The financing for this program does come from probation fees.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve?
Leonard moves.
Mr. Leonard moves
Sanchez seconds.
and Mr. Sanchez seconds. Any comments or questions regarding this resolution? Okay, pretty straightforward. Thank you so much for your help. Okay, a roll call, please.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Gums, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Shepro, Davis, Molina.
Molina, yes. And this will also move on to our Finance and Budget Committee meeting later on this month. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to our Circuit Clerk.
Thank you. I just moved the microphone and there's coffee all under. I think the state's attorney is trying to electrocute me, but that's okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Theresa Barrero, Circuit Clerk, and our report is on file. If anybody has any questions regarding it, I do want to mention a couple of things. Revenue is still down. We're averaging about a little over 20,000 a day when it used to be 50 plus a day for the county. And that is revenue that is not just generated for the circuit clerk's office, it's generated for all the individuals in this room's offices, as well as the general fund. So that's an issue that I think the board really needs to take a look at. We also are trying to have our, I believe it's called Midas, the phone system. One of you can correct me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. It's a new phone system that the county is initiating. And am I saying that right, Michelle? Mitel. Mitel, sorry. Okay. So what it is it will help any work from home staff be able to answer the phones. You can answer the phones anywhere. And this is a huge initiative that the circuit clerk's office really needs. And currently we are down on the list as pretty much close to the last for the office of it to be implemented in. And I would just hope that they move us up on that list so that we can have individuals answer the phone from if they're at home, working from home, or, you know, with the COVID going the way it is, again, it makes me nervous that we'll have to decrease individuals in the office again. But currently, we cannot answer the phones outside of the office, and we are the call center, other than KingCom, for individuals that call through the county. So it's very important that they move us up. I know they don't want to because our office is so large and it is a huge undertaking, but it is very important for our office. The other thing is I'd like to talk about all these trials that you hear and cases that all the other individuals, departments work on, go through our office. All the paperwork, all the discovery files, everything that you talk about. And we are still down several employees. I believe we're down 14. I have asked our staff to put out that we are hiring 3 in civil and 2, I believe, in criminal. The reason for that is we can't keep up. As soon as we get a 1-for-1, 2 leave. So we can't seem to get caught up. And I know it was mentioned on Tuesday at the county board meeting that if a department needs funds or if a department needs assistance in any way, then the county is there to help. And we need to raise the bottom salary for our employees. We start at $15 an hour. That's $29.5. Okay. And that's, I have probably 30% of my employees on to have additional jobs. We had a Christmas party at the office first, I guess, since the beginning. They've never had one, so they were a little shocked. And so a couple employees could not make it because they were still in bond call and working at the sheriff's, you know, at the judicial center. So those individuals, one of them, he makes $15 an hour, you know. I just think that we need to, the county really needs to take a look at what we pay our employees and what these employees actually do, as opposed to, yes, they could go to Target and make more and do, I'm not saying Target's a mindless job, but it's not as consuming on your mental health as working at circuit clerk's offices. And I just wanted, you know, mention that to everyone, that I know you've all heard it and you've all talked about it. Mr. Brown's talked about it. Mr. Leonard's talked about it. Chairwoman Myrna Molina's talked about it, but it's really a serious issue. And I think we really need to address it, and it doesn't need to take another $150,000 salary for a consultant to figure it out. You already know it. Oh, Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, Mr. Sanchez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Barrero, I was looking at your collections and I know we had brought Harris and Harris on some time ago. And I don't know if you can answer the question, but I'm just curious to know how well that's going. I don't know if you have like a month by month comparison and if it's worth I assume it's worth the investment in hiring that law firm to do collections for us. But I'm just curious if you know off the top of your head or if you can bring to us next month a little update on that.
Well, in the report, it's got the monthly amounts. It is down because people aren't working, so they can't collect. That's where you get the funds from if somebody has a job. And a lot of folks are not working right now, but it is down considerably. But I believe their fees come out of what they collect.
Yeah.
So it is worth it. And it's something I campaigned on that I didn't actually like. But as far as revenue, it is worth it. But it takes it takes a long time. And after 7 years, it falls off. So even if we're still trying to collect, it'll eventually fall off if we can't get a hold of somebody or if they're not working. Or the good thing about having a company like Harris and Harris do this is that they have other resources where they can track down somebody. We just have what we have in Kane County. And I'm glad you kind of brought this up because we are initiating additional notices that go out, which will not cost the county just in postage to try and collect those funds before they go to collections, because it saves on the individual before they go to collections. They don't have all those fees on top of it. So that's kind of my goal, is to track down these folks and try to remind them, because right now they go to court on Zoom many times and they click off. I wish we could have something that says you can't click off until you pay your fine, but that's not how it works. So, and a lot of times the clerk in the courtroom is so busy, they can't deal with the payment. So they send them on to one of our satellite offices. And what's a person going to do when they've already been in line? They got to get to work or what have you. They're not going to go down to a satellite office and pay. So I would like the clerks to be able to collect in the courtroom. And I know in civil, they do not do that. They do have the card machine already set up. When we installed Tyler in 2016, that all came with it. They do have the capability, but they don't have the time currently. And then we're also talking about a safety issue of them coming back and forth with the fees. So there's a couple of avenues right now we're trying to address, but back to your original statement or your original question, yes, it's worth it. It's been a slow trickle. And with COVID, it hasn't helped us at all. But we're still pursuing. Harris and Harris is still pursuing. They did want to add another fee to their list, and I just didn't think it would be appropriate. We can't collect what we already have. Why would we try to add another 8% onto somebody's, what they already owe? So, and you also have to remember, we go through iDrop, which is through the state of Illinois. So the state of Illinois also tries to collect on past fines, but there was a certain amount of time where the governor stopped that so that people, as a service to the public for COVID dollars, they stopped that. And it's just started back up again, but we have to rely on those funds coming from the state of Illinois, and that sometimes takes a while. But it's kind of like the dog chasing its tail kind of thing.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions, Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a comment about the circuit clerk and two comments, actually. One about the collections by Harris and Harris. They've been used for a number of years. And the previous circuit clerk was not submitting on a timely basis as many collections as were possible. And I'd like to say that Ms. Barrero has stayed on top of it. Historically, we only collect maybe 7% of these fees. However, last month, there were 464 accounts sent to Harris and Harris, and we collected about 115,000, I think it was. And the amount that was sent in was 333,000. So even though I understand they're down and times are tough for paying, the system is working properly. I'd like to thank Ms. Barrero for that.
Thank you.
Secondly, I'd just like to mention, since I have the chair of the ARP committee here, that I'm on that committee and we were asked to talk to the different departments about their requests through ARP. And Mr. Kenyon and I both agreed that Ms. Barrero was very accommodating and understanding with respect to the request. And we came to an agreement on a number of different requests and what we could afford to do and what she could afford to live with. And it was a very nice communication we had and very understanding on her part. I know there's a lot of needs in that department, so I really appreciate her consideration during that. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I did appreciate the meeting that we had, Mr. Kenyon, Mr. Leonard. It was very informative. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions for our circuit clerk? Okay, so we will move on our agenda to our coroner. Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Good morning.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. Yes, okay, first of all, our reports are on file. As you notice in the stats, it looks like we went down tremendously, in the actual number of cases, which we did in actual number. But the vast majority of the reduction was obviously COVID deaths from last year at this time. And which of each and every one of those is obviously tragic. But when you look at it from a fiscal standpoint, they are an inexpensive form of death that we have to do investigation on. And unfortunately, the expensive types of deaths that we have to do doubled. So looking at the inquests, we don't do inquests anymore, but we call them SOU, sign out unnatural, which are our heavy investigative types of deaths. We went from 19 to 32. So, and again, those are very expensive forms of death. So looking at the numbers, it can look misleading, but I just wanted to explain that. My annual report is finally finished for 2020. I'll be sending an email with a copy of that to everyone today. The next thing is that we have, thank you all the members of the county board for voting to allow us to have an x-ray machine, paying for that x-ray machine, because that will come in handy and will help me in controlling some of the costs. Several $1,000s that we've had over the years in x-rays that we just have to have for our forensic pathologists to look at. So we will have that in-house and it will be great. And we'll keep tabs on how much money that is saving us as we use it. So we'll probably we'll be able to actually increase our investigations, and we'll use it more often because many times if it wasn't absolutely necessary, we didn't have them done because we had to pay for it. So now we don't have to pay for it. So it'll hopefully help. There'll be some serendipity costs, we'll call it, that we save that way. But speaking of forensic pathologists, that is going to be one of my number one goals for next year. Is we're at a point now where it actually makes, and I've mentioned this before, where it makes sense to have a full-time forensic pathologist. In the past, it was not fiscally, fiscal ability to do that. It made much more sense to have a contractual per autopsy type of deal with our forensic pathologists. But now we're at a point where, last year we did 330. This year we're very similar to those numbers. And my goal is to reduce the cost of our forensic autopsies by 15 to 20% by doing that. So, and that's a huge expense, obviously, in our budget. So, Yeah, that's basically all I have unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for our coroner? Okay,
Madam Chair.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Not a question, but I just want to point out again for anyone that may be listening, that once again, month over month, year over year, the amount of suicides and deaths caused by overdose are again increasing. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for our coroner? Okay, thank you, Coroner Russell. We look forward to hopefully having you host us next year at some point in that new building you have. But thank
Oh,
you. and
absolutely.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to new business. I guess as new business, I just want to say, I've been chairing this committee for the past year, and I've had the pleasure of working with all of you. And I think this is one of the best committees on the county board right now. We have the expertise of all of our committee members, Mr. Leonard, Mr. Brown, Mr. Sanchez, Ms. Gums, Mr. Shepro, Mr. Davist. But I think that in the next year, we really have to roll up our sleeves and get working on what we're going to decide that this county is going to do for our citizens. I've had the pleasure of working with our judicial partners on creating a strategic plan that we hope we will be able to introduce next year, and kind of give everybody on this board an idea of what it is that we need to do to support our judicial partners and what our revenue sources are going to be. I know Mr. Leonard and Ms. Mosser have been working on different ideas outside of just increasing property taxes, which I think is not the first option for us. And I think that 2022 is really going to give us an idea of where we're going to go. And I hope with your leadership that we can get to a better place than we are now. And I guess I'll take a motion to place reports on file at this point.
Leonard moves.
Mr. Brown moves, Mr. Leonard seconds. And then we are going to request to go into executive session to discuss the release of closed minutes. May I have a motion and a second to go into executive session? Mr. Sanchez
Leonard
moves,
seconds.
Mr. Leonard seconds.
Unknown caller.
Roll call.
A roll call to go into executive session.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Gums, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Shepro,
Davis.
Molina.
Molina, yes, thank you. And for everybody else that's probably not going to come back, thank you. Merry Christmas. And please let all of our employees who are going to be working throughout Christmas and New Year's know that we're thinking about them and that we're grateful that they're there to support and protect us all.
Okay, everybody online, you will be receiving an invite to go into the closed session. Please accept that invite. We'll wait for all of you to get in. Be aware we are live streaming, so until I give you the okay, anything you say will be going out live to the public.
Okay, we are back in open session. May I please have roll call?
Brown,
Brown here.
Gums, Leonard,
Leonard here.
Sanchez,
Sanchez here.
Shepro, Davis, Molina.
Molina present.
Thank you.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to approve Exhibit A for the release of closed session minutes?
Sanchez moves.
Leonard seconds.
Okay, any comments or questions? Okay, may I please have roll call?
Brown,
Here.
Gum-
Yes.
Gums, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Shepro, Davis, Molina.
Molina, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and if we can go back to placing reports on file, may I have consensus to place reports on file?
I'll
We
ask for
didn't vote.
unanimous consent.
Okay, we have unanimous consent. All right, now we will ask for a motion to adjourn.
weekend.
You too.
Don't have to
I'll
work,
ask for it on
no
behalf of
extra
Mr.
work.
On behalf of Mr. Kenyon, I'll
They
ask for
must be all
adjournment.
done doing everything.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made by Mr. Sanchez and second by Mr. Leonard to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?